diesels. So what we're going to do today, excuse the absence last week, things have been busy. Plus we had a couple of weddings and stuff, and it's just not possible to do it. So there's no point putting anything out that is just asked and bodged. Might as well try and keep your, I suppose you'd call it, content quality up. So what we're going to do today is we're starting Geronimo. So we're going to chop in and out a bit. So basically this video is the start of Geronimo, the little Volkswagen Beetle that we're restoring. So I'm going to put some footage on in a minute of it turning obviously what was a little mobile Volkswagen Beetle into this and where we're going with this. And then we're going to have a chat about restoration and welding, because parked in the back here are two, as you'll see, shiny, nice looking little cars. So we have Doug, it's a Morris Minor convertible, and we have another customer of ours, little Fiat 500. Both of these vehicles we have done massive amounts of structural welding work to, like Doug being the worst. Doug is probably, or was, the worst structural bodge I have ever seen in my life. Bought from a classic car place by a friend of mine, customer. He's a builder. So if you looked at Doug, sat there, we'll give you a tour of Doug in a minute. We have not cosmetically touched a thing. That was how it looked when they bought it 3 or 4 years ago. And I'm going to lift that up in a minute and show you what we've done. Basically explain to you why we had to do it. Originally, Doug only came in here for a service and a check over 3 years ago. Obviously, he's been done and out since. And same with the little Fiat 500. The Fiat 500 came in 2 years ago with wiring issues. So we started on the wiring issues, lifted it up and went, my Lord, that was bad. That was not as bad as that, because someone had bodged that to death to sell it to make it look pretty. And that had just had 30 years of appalling repairs back when it wasn't worth anything to keep it on the road. And then we're into this. And this has had some hideous body restoration, and you'll see that in a minute. So we're going to go out all over the place, and then also what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a general tour of what we're up to at the moment to show you we seem to be the welding structural repair people of the moment at the moment. So we've got a Sprinter there we're doing. Anyone looking will notice that my Peugeot 309 is up there on a ramp. We've got loads of footage of that, but we'll give you a little tour of it just to show you what we do against some of the horrible stuff we've seen. And then parked right there is a commercial job, modern one, structural repair, sort of give you a grasp of fixing old stuff, fixing new stuff, fixing current stuff. I mean, I suppose you could call that Sprinter current. We've got another Sprinter over there, and also things to look for. So if you're going out buying one of these things, so let's say you're going out buying a Sprinter van, going out buying yourself a Morris Minor, things that you might just, the stuff that grabs my attention straight away, where you go, ooh, I wonder what's hiding under there. Whereas, to be honest, if you didn't know to look, it's all black and shiny and pretty, you'd think, blimey. I mean, if you looked at Doug, you'd think Doug was spectacular. That's exactly what my friend did. Doug looked at shiny Doug, nice chromy wheels, bits and bobs. But Doug, to be honest, at the time was a complete death trap. But we'll get to that now. Anyway, so bit of beetling, back to that lot. Right, this is Fudge. So Fudge is chief in charge of stripping Geronimo. So that's the first plan for today, is to get it somewhere on some wheel skates, so that, because we need to pull it into a bazillion pieces. Plan. Right, I'm going to go and start that, move it over there. So we move that here, that there, that there, that there, and find a space for that. Plan. Oh God, there's not much room in the bloody thing. da. So we've got Geronimo to well, there isn't very much Geronimo left at the moment. It's all sort of dismantled. So basically we are onto the point of removing some absolutely horrible welding. I mean, look at that. That's just a fence, man. I mean, this nose is rubbish. We've got some fairly exciting bits in the rear here that need to go, and then we'll bring you in here in a second and show you the wheel arches. They was done by a expert. So what we're going to do now is try and extract all the horrible bits of welding and try and see what we got left of the original car to do a nice job of repairing it rather than stuff like that. Because what he did was you welded like one big plate on, that didn't really fit, so then you welded a smaller one underneath, but you didn't have a big enough bit of tin, so you welded that one on the end, and then you didn't bother attacking it at all to tidy it up, and the hole behind it's about that big, but you've got this much metal on. And then here we had an attack of pigeons. It's about that deep, and obviously we didn't have one of them grinder things afterwards because we didn't even bother attempting to try it. So what we did was put some weld sealant over it and cover it in black snot, because that always helps. So we thought we'd do a grand tour. So there we are. Look, causey. I mean, that is just it's pigeons. And then so yeah, so we got this bit of plate under that bit of plate with that bit tacked on the end. So if you go quickly round on the inside in here, that was the hole we needed to cover. So we're not quite sure what was going on there, and there's something offensive in there. Then we come to the rear sort of suspension mount points. So obviously this is a replacement panel here. So so we welded that in like, it might be 3 bits. So we welded that bit. We didn't, all we did there, and we didn't bother again. Oh, there is a splob of bird poop there, and there's another horrible bit there, and there's some more horrible bits there. And then what we did was we put loads of weld sealant over it like that, yeah, because that hides it. So that's going, and this bit down here also offends me. That's a little bit better. Whoever did that did weld all the way along, but it's rusted off. Then let me just hop in here. We have to go for the quality. So blind man, galloping horse. Look at that. I mean, she is beautiful. Now you would think, oh, that's a massive weld. No, that's a whole pile of weld sealant and black snot. So that's all coming out. And then we've got, I don't quite know what's going on there, because we've obviously put this big bit of tin in, but it didn't quite fit. So what we had to do was cag this manky piece in here to join in with this beautifully put in bit there. And then obviously Norman must have had another day of doing the other side, so he didn't replace this bit around the outside here. He just put 2 huge plates, cagged it in, and he managed to make it the right size this time, so he didn't have to weld a bit in the corner. So that's beautiful. Then we've got nice heater channel. Oh no, I don't know what happened there. Look at, I mean, yeah, beautiful, nice repair. Over here, we're like, oh, just weld, yeah, weld a bit there, and a bit there. And we did do 3 bits there, and then another bit there. And then over here, I don't quite know what we welded on here, but it's like there, that's rubbish. And then there's that bit, which is horrible. And then if we go out here, more stuff that offends me. So here, we didn't, that's not, no, that's going. And then we probably got the same here. It's just nasty. So that's going to go, and then this bit's just a bit rusty. This bit's snagged, so she's going. So what I have done first thing this morning is I'll just get this. So this was welded on the bottom inner flitch. So look at that massive great plate to cover hole like that. So why you didn't just sort of properly let a piece in here and weld it along this line and make it look nice, I don't know. And then we had more pigeons here. So We're going to have a bit of de-pigeoning there to peel the remnants of this not welded in the right place, rusty, horrible nose off. So what I'm going to do now, obviously we did some more pigeon, but they did grind that bit because you can see it, paint it blue. So we're going to take all of this off, that bit's going, and then hopefully we might actually be able to tell what's underneath all this nastiness, and then we'll know what panels we need to get and where we can do sort of proper nice body joins and try and do it so it's right. So you'll have seen us a second ago, bit of time lapse, me and Fudgy picking the nastiness off of this body shell. So lying down there is the over welded replacement nose cone section, which was particularly horrifically fitted. Obviously that's the back section at the back of that's where the spare tyre would sit. And then you have your hole for adjusting your steering box. Now, same again. I mean, this was supposedly done by a Volkswagen restoration place quite a few years ago. It's awful. I mean, it is just awful. We're not even going to talk about it. I mean, but the trouble is, to look from the outside, you wouldn't really know unless you went and looked underneath and looked at all that nastiness. So we'll start at the front of Geronimo. Now, showed you a minute ago all the overplating. This side, that's taken off. So obviously we have this hole, big hole here, which had a plate about this big over the top of it. So heater channel on a Volkswagen, or as I know it, and obviously then it comes in as part of the front structure here. Now this piece, part of the front structure, is lovely. The problem we have is obviously this piece. So we haven't bothered cutting the rest of it off here, because this section is the pigeons landed here as we showed you earlier on, and this is clamped over the top of the old one and sort of half joined in here. They didn't bother replacing the structural section that's in here, they just sort of went round it, but put this over the top, joined it in here. Now what I have got over here, I'm just going to go and grab it. This would be, this is a Volkswagen Beetle nose repair section from Just Campers. Nice piece of panel work, and this is designed to repair, obviously, if you have this section here rotted out. So you can see this is an earlier 60s Beetle, anyone will have noticed, because this is long nose, this is short nose. So this panel here is as near as, damn it, that bit there with these two mounts on it. That is rubbish, that's going in the scrap. Now what we would have done, what you can do, or you could do, is obviously put this big bit here. That's what this is designed for. You have the inner legs that the last people didn't bother to put in. They go up into the front to meet the bulkhead here, and then you join your panel here, make a really nice job of it, and you wouldn't know. Join this in structurally at the front. You've got your front mounts above your body mounts to your axle. Would all be lovely. Now this is fine on a car like this if you've got rot in the nose. Would be your most sensible way out of it. But what we currently have is, obviously, we have a lot of rot in the nose, because I can stand where the nose is supposed to be, and there are bits of it falling off all over the place. I mean, I could just woggle out one of the tank mounts to the front body mounts there, they've had it. And then we've got this. So ideally, you wouldn't really want to put a nose section into here to keep this manky bit in here. This bit's all right, then to have to scarf a load of patches in the bottom here. What my cunning plan is, and I'll just throw a photograph of the panel in now, I'm going to replace because I want to do a good job for my customer, all of this. So I want this, which I can get, just campers again. I can get this whole section with the bottom on it to here as one lump, both sides. So I can replace this whole panel. So I'm going to pick all the spot welds off because we've got a bit of nastiness here to get me back to the original bulkhead, which is in there. Take all of this out, all of that out, get rid of this and put a new one in, and do that both sides, and then assemble this nose spot welded together with new panels. So we'll have a new inner down through to replace this. We'll sort these front legs out, and instead of having to have had a welded join here somewhere, some patches welded in here, we can spot weld it all the way through here, up this door pillar where necessary here, and then we've got it back in as it would have been technically somewhere near factory. You'll never get it perfect because obviously they assembled them in big chunks, and then obviously less chance of the rot getting back in, because it was much better to have one complete panel than it is ever to join. There's nothing wrong with joining where it's necessary, and as long as you make a nice job of it and keep an eye on it. But obviously where a panel's been welded together, you get electrolysis. No matter what you do at any point, you will get rot again. So that will cure the front, and then I can put obviously the new spare tyre panels in, the new front panels in, the new legs. That'll sort the front of Geronimo, and we don't have to plate any. Well, I don't do plating, I won't do over plating. What we're going to do now is we're going to pop to the back, and then we'll show you the cunning plan on the back where you saw the horrible in the wheel arches a minute ago. Now, we showed you this horrible, nasty repair here earlier. Now, I haven't bothered chiseling any of this out, obviously because time is money and all that sort of stuff. This is a single skinned arch, goes into the car, and you've seen the nastiness behind it with all the patches all over it, which is actually above, on top of this piece of wheel arch. So I can get, just campers again, a complete section. So I can get all of this to about here. So you can see the join. There's a structural section here somewhere. So basically to here. Sadly, I can't get this complete section. I don't think so. I'm going to keep searching. Because that panel comes in from the back of the car here, swoops down, as obviously would have been one side originally. So instead of trying to sort any of this, which is horrific, what we'll do is we're going to take all of this out, and they are renowned for rotting on these bolt holes where the wings join to the car. There's a rubber fillet in there. It's actually very similar to the way that Morris Minors are put together. The wings are bolted on, and this is that's definitely, there's a patch in there. You can see the top of it. There's bits of body filler. I mean, as you say, that's the trouble. It doesn't look bad, does it? Once there's a wing on here and you just looked in there, you'd think, and this was all covered in nasty weld sealant and black snot. Well, this thing was quite good. It wasn't. So I'm going to take all of this out, including the inner wing, into basically, which is like the engine, the rear engine lid, I suppose you'd call it. There's a section that goes like that on the inside that joins to this. And then obviously this back panel here is gunch. She's all gone and nasty and rotted out at the bottom. And these are the rear inner flitches. That would have been a bumper mount. Now these have been replaced before. You can see where someone's welded them in. So all of that's going to come out, but we may need to come up with a plan for this piece here, which we can probably save. I'd rather have it as one, save the joins again, but I don't think I can get it. So I've got to do the best job I can with what's available. So this panel I can get after. So instead of having that joined, so at the moment that's been spot welded to that as a panel. That is over the top of that. And then there's some horrific patching in behind all of this to make that join to that. I mean, it is just awful. So I'm going to put inner in as one, and then this structural piece, which goes over the top, I can buy, and then I can properly attach that, make sure it's all in the right spot, and then all of my suspension points and pickups are as they should be. And I'm just going to pop on the inside. I'll take you with me, and then we'll just show you the plan for this panel. Obviously on the inside I'll show you how the joins work and what we need to attend to. Right, so we're obviously inside the back of the car now. Now you can see that the other day we were going to pick all of this out We made a start, and this is over the top of the original single skin inner arch, the bit you'll have seen on the other side. The other side's just as horrific. So I can take this out. It is a single skin panel. There's not two skins. That is the bit you'll have seen a minute ago. So I'm not going to spend hours picking all of this apart because it's all over the top of the bit that I'm going to take out properly. Now there's a flat lid in the back of here. This sits just behind the engine over the top of the transaxle, and then there's this panel in front of it joined into this cross member, which picks up on the back of your heater channels. Now we've got some heater channel nastiness to sort either side because I don't like either of that. And then we have to make a decision. There are some, as you'll see, are horribly nasty beat-on crappy bits of tin over the top of this panel. So what I'm going to do later on in the week, and you'll see it on the next episode, is we're going to cut through, try and grind out this possible weld seam sealer disaster that's over the top of this lid, get that off, get the one off the other side, and get this off to see what's left in. I know he's rusty in here because basically you can see through to the ground there. And I can buy a nicely made repair panel that does replace a section of this cover. So we could take it out to here, if this is any good, to repair that bit, and then put the inner wings in at the back. If this turns out to be worse than I think it is, there is a complete panel from the back through down to here, but I don't think this bit is particularly bad. I think it's just been welded on the top of both sides. So I might, depending on what I can get, replace this as one, that as one, and obviously the heater channels it joins to before we get to that point. And then that gets rid of any of this hideousness, because I mean, I want this car to look, we're going to completely do and paint this body shell. So if you ever took the back seat out, you looked in, and that was right. What the previous people did was stick all the trim kit over the top of that horrible mess, so no one could see it. I covered it in black MOT tester repellent snot at the time, just to give it that extra level of quality. Right, onward. So obviously you've seen how horrible that bit is. Now, if you don't know anything about Volkswagen Beetles, they're quite kit form. So I'm just going to go a quick explanation, because I did have a bit of footage of us lifting this from that, which I seem to have lost. So this is obviously like the main floor pan and chassis section of Beetle. This bit's really good. We're happy with this bit. And Beetles are very simply put together. They're a bit like a Land Rover. They're a big Meccano kit, really. So obviously we'll show you, you've seen me get the correct 1500 engine that we acquired going with the transaxle on it. That's over there. We'll show you that in a second. And Volkswagen Beetles have like a torsion beam front suspension with two tubes, bolts on, pivots on it. We'll pop out and show you one of those in a minute, the bolts here. So the front main sort of structure of the car is this section. This section, this set of floor pans is mustard. So there's a beam across here with two wheels on it. And then at the back, you've got a transaxle that goes in here with an engine sat off at the back of it. The engine is sort of here-ish way somewhere. This is, the sections that we saw earlier that were horrible are sat above this, over the back of the rear, the gearbox, the rear transaxle, and that member that we're a bit suspicious of bolts down onto here, and the main body fixings are the heater channels, dunk, and then obviously up in the front are the sections that bolt on to the top of the rear axle on that one that are completely gone. So this bit will go off, get shotty blasted, sorted, anything done to it that it needs, and we'll rebuild. You'll see it all coming. A nice rolling chassis to this, but we're keeping this for a minute, because the one thing that you're going to need to do, there's a lot of steel coming out of this car, and if we're not careful, it's going to go like a floppy jelly mould type of thing, and you're obviously going to have to watch the fact, one, that it needs to bolt onto this correctly, that you have to get, before you weld it all up, bent and out of shape. The doors won't close, nothing will fit, and it will be horrible. So as we get further, before we send this off and get this done, we're going to put the body shell back on this so that it is square and true. We'll trig this up on some stands so he's where he needs to be. And then as we're doing the repairs, we'll use this to give it some extra structural strength to get everything in the right place. We can quickly whip the front axle on to make sure that the new, well, they're not there, they fell off, they're over there. The new front pickups meet in the right places. Everything is where it needs to go. As if we just sort of guesstimated it, sat there on 4 stands, we could come to the point we put it back together and nothing will fit any sense, and then you really have got problems. So this, if you haven't seen the video on it, this is, the original car was missing its 1500. We know what happened to it. It died in the sort of 70s and 80s, and it was replaced with a 1300 at the time because the man could only afford a 1300. The 1300 is, you can see it nestling down there. It's a perfect little engine. That is for sale. Hit me up if you want one. And this is unbelievably a 1968 1500 that's only done 8,000 miles. We've got all the history for the car it was part of and a load of other bits of the car it was part of. Actually, I've got the front beam, which I'm going to use as well because it's got very, very minimal wear. So we got this going. So this, as you can see, is, so you've got a transaxle on the back that goes into the car, then your drive shafts and all your suspension pickups either side, and then your engine basically hangs off the back. The engine really, apart from the joins of the tin wear around the outside of it, there's a bit of tin wear on there but a lot of it's off, sits up into the back of the car. So this sits under that nasty lid there, bolted into those 2 back legs there. And what we're going to do quickly now is just pop out. Right, so stand out the front here. This is a spare front steering, well, front suspension rig for a Beetle. So as you can see, there are the 4 holes that bolt it to the front of the floor pans, and then you've got obviously a torsion bar type suspension, 2 pivoting arms either end, obviously the wheel hubs and the disc brakes and all that, and then a steering box bolted that end with your 2 rods going. So that's lovely. That has only done 8,000 miles. That will need a bit of reconditioning on the rubbers, but there is no wear in it at all. So that's the sort of the front suspension. It's not the best of, obviously sat up here, but you can see what I mean. If I whip back quickly round here, that section bolts there. One complete unit gives you your complete front suspension, obviously with some pickup points on the top for the front nose. So we're going to leave beetling for a minute, and what we're going to do now is we're going to go and talk about these 2. So I'll give you a tour of, we'll start with Doug, and I'll give you a tour of the outside of Doug, and then we're going to quickly whip Doug outside, put him on a lift him up in the air, and I'll show you the underside of Doug. I'll show you what we had to do to get Doug square, true, and in the most important of ways, safe. Right, I'm going to have to move this, to move that, to move that, to move that, to move that, so it might take a bit of time. Won't for you, will for me. So this is Doug. Don't ask me why he's called Doug. It says Doug on the back. They call him Doug. I've got no reason not to call him Doug. So Doug is a 1968 Morris Minor convertible. I'm not quite sure whether it started life as a convertible because I couldn't tell. I did try it. It may have been a convertible. It may have been a converted car. Lots of them were. So Doug has, I mean, Doug looks very respectable. I haven't touched a jot of paintwork, chrome, lights, anything on Doug. We have done a lot else, not more to Doug. We'll show you that in a second. So basically, Doug has had some spectacular upgrades. I mean, Doug is good. So Doug has, I think on a Morris Minor it's in the front here, isn't it? Now I may need to go inside and pull a lever. Where's the bonnet catch on a Doug? There. So Doug originally would have had, he said, a 1000cc A series, little green one, a 4-speed gearbox, drum brakes front and back. But Doug has been pimped, and this was done really well. This is before we got it, obviously. So Doug has a 1275cc midget engine, twin SU carburetors, a Sierra, I think they're Type 9s, MT75s or whatever they are, 5-speed gearbox conversion. So Doug is quite fast. Doug also has disky brakes, a Lucas power stop to give you servo assistance to allow you to stop with your disky brakes, and goes very, very well. I mean, it's almost like a little racing hot rod. All of that had been done beautifully. So when we had Doug in first, purely was for a quick look over, just because technically this car is MOT exempt. If you want to check the MOT history, you will see that we, for them, MOT it. I think it's a good idea. It's 45 quid for an MOT test, 53 quid, we get £45 trade, but 53 quid for the rest of them. For your 53 quid, you get a capable, independent fella inspect your vehicle to make sure it's roadworthy. Now, I think for that money, it's worth having. So Doug has just been tested, passed clear and lovely, everything on Doug works, there were no worries. But when we first got Doug in, that's all we were doing. We were going to have a quick check through, and Doug was due an MOT test. Yes, so we picked Doug up on a lorry, brought him here because it was easier than two of us going backwards and forwards. And when dragging it up on the truck, you were sort of like, ooh, there's some nasty bits of plating, because you can see the underside of it. Thought that doesn't look terribly special. And we got Doug here, so we thought first off, best bet is to go for a whiz down the road, see what the brakes work like, whether there's any carburation issues, gearbox is all right, all that type of stuff. Doug just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like, one, it went down the road straight, and it didn't quite handle as you'd expect an upgraded Morris Minor or even a standard Morris Minor to handle. And then there it started. So we put Doug up on a ramp and lifted him up. So I'm going to put Doug on a ramp now and lift him up and show you what I had to replace to get Doug right. Doug is good now. Doug's a good little car. See now, Doug is above my head. Now, Morris Minor constructions, Morris Minors are monocoque, so technically they don't have a separate chassis at all. It is, the body shell is the chassis. So you've got leaf sprung live rear axle, 2 springs. You have here onto the floors your 2 front axle mounts, your little swing shackles on the back. Then basically the convertibles in theory would have been slightly heavier built. So you have a chassis leg coming through here, right over and down through, cuts into this inner flitch, goes right through to here. And obviously all of this, these are the 2 front chassis legs, they pick up on it on this bar, torsion bar front suspension, lever arch, shock absorbers, all that type of goodness. And then your engine bolted into your front chassis legs. Floor pans all the way through, up over into the boot. Now when we first got Doug, we lifted this up under here, and I mean this looks pretty respectable for a Morris Minor, does now. All of this was a sea of, there's lots of still black stuff on here, years of undersealing. But you kept looking at it, I think it doesn't look quite right. So we got sort of picking around these axle mounts, and all this silicon fell out. Top quality brown builder's kitchen silicon, I'd like to add. And it just came out of everywhere. And we were sort of looking at it, and we got measuring up, because it's always a good thing. So we measured this axle mount to this axle mount, obviously to a point at the front where we knew was square. So it turned out that this axle mount was 20 mil further forwards than that one. Hence why dear little Doug didn't want to go down the road very well. Now, anyone that knows Morris Minor knows that inside the doors are these cover plates that cover into like the inner sill area. You have this round holed cut inner sill, which is part of the main car structure. So the first thing we did was take them off. Oh my God, you could see the round holes, and you could see where someone had welded bits of tin in through the round holes. So basically Doug was bad. So me and Dom, when he was obviously alive, bless him, everything you see here from there, including the gear tunnel, to here, to the front of the bulkhead, is new. There was no join left from this back chassis leg here to the front. It was just, the whole thing was, you could, when you looked at the car, none of the panel gaps were any good. The doors didn't shut properly. There was a gap one side the windscreen like that and a gap the other side like that. Because basically the whole thing was just a big floppy blancmange. So we've had all the floors out of this to get into these inner flitches. We threw the floors away, they were horrible as well, badly fitted. To repair, we had to remake, basically, technically like the outer chassis legs to join the front to the back to get some structure in this car. It took a very long time. And then basically sort all of these members out, tidy them up to rejoin all the floor pans and the front of the back of the car together properly. These axle mounts are new, and put the axle in square and sort it out so that it drove in a straight line, it trued up properly, and it is now right. There are a few bits, it's an old car, so we had some other bits of plating. There's a bit of plating here, but it wasn't done badly, that was someone else. And we got to a point where basically we sorted Doug out to the point of being safe. Someone's repaired this chassis leg donkeys years ago, that's fine, we're not hiding it, that wasn't us. And Doug, he's good, he's done to here to the back. I'll give you a quick show, lift the camera up, whiz around, and appears that I left Doug out for 2 days, and being a Morris Minor convertible might have got some water in the front because it's dripping out here, but that'd be fine. Right, so we start here. Now you can see, previous to us, someone has put a bit of plating in there. That's not the best, but it's not dangerous. It all started here. So, where did we? There is our panel join in there and to the other side. And basically we have replaced everything from here all through here. These this is how they came welded on the panels, so we decided that was good enough, left them alone. Inner flitch, well, they're basically up inside of here. All of this is new, floors are new, joined into the gear tunnel here. Across the top of these chassis legs rejoined, you can see where we put it in. And we had to make, in behind here is a chassis leg that comes off of the back down here, in here, goes straight through to the front here, picks up door post, joins onto this, which is the big original sort of structural member that picks up the torsion bars, seen there and there, both sides out to the rear floor. So all of this we replaced. Everything here is new because basically there was just body filler, seam sealant, crap guck. This car was at the time fairly deadly. These axle mounts were in the wrong place, so this back axle wasn't even true to the front one. It had some, I think it's still, I never cut this bit off, but it had some horrific sort of anti-sway bar thing. You can see where it was welded to the floor there, that was pushing the axle that way. Oh, it was just horrific. So we have sorted Doug. Doug is structurally sound, solid. I mean, he has got some bits of plating that weren't us, so someone's plated it there and there, but it's not hiding anything. It's just a front chassis leg. We were quite happy, so we basically got to a point where we left all this alone. Cost prohibitive wise. Customer said, this is what I've got to spend. So you can see Doug's got brand new hubs, disc brakes, bits and bobs. All of that was put on there. That's before us. Same this side. Kingpins, everything brand new. Nice new exhaust. Sierra gearbox conversion, 5-speed. All done nicely. Doug is by no way perfect. It looks very respectable and it is not bad. It is a nice little car. So I'm going to let Doug back down again, and we'll put him inside and get a Fiat 500. And Doug is also, if anyone is interested, 110% honestly, Doug is for sale. People that own him don't really use him anymore. They've had a bit of a life change. Anyway, I'll explain that in a minute. So we've shown you Doug. Doug is good now. Not perfect, but he's good. You probably struggle to find a 1968 Morris Minor that's never been welded on. I mean, they probably are available, but they're going to be a small fortune because these were cheap little family cars. They were used, beat on, worn out and thrown away. So, Doug, if anyone wants Doug, Doug is for sale. My customers, they've had him 5 or 6 years, they've had their fun, they've had a bit of a life change, so it's time to pass Doug on. So Doug is a 1968 Morris Minor convertible, good roof, nice blue interior, nice carpet set, 5-speed gearbox conversion, 1275 GT on twin carbs. Doug is whizzy. I mean, Doug is good for modern traffic speeds. Doug will do 60, and Doug will stop from 60. He's got disc brake conversion on the front. He's got servo-assisted conversion, so power stop. It's got good tyres, all the lights work. It's got a brand new MOT on it. We're selling it for them. It's 7.5 grand. I don't think that's bad. You can find a cheaper one, but you can also find a more expensive one. So if anyone wants a Doug for 7.5 grand, you've seen the underside of him. He's good. And it works, and it's quite good fun. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at a Fiat 500. So what we have here is my customer's. She loves it, by the way. This isn't for sale, don't ask. L-Reg, 1970, HIJKL, 1973, 74. I think this is a 500D. Obviously not diesel, I think it's a D model. I'm not a 500 expert, so don't shout at me. I know a lot more about them than I did a few years ago. So, would have originally had like a, were they sort of 460, 500 twin cylinder air cooled in the back. This has got the little baby Fiat 126 conversion in it. So it's got a 126 engine, bit more of the horsey powers, and it's really good fun. Owned by my customer Janet. Janet has had lots of Fiat 500s and bought this about 2.5, 3 years ago. She bought it right. I'm not going to tell you how much she paid for it, but she also bought it knowing it had some fair issues. The wiring was bad, really, really, really bad. And she also knew that the floor pans weren't the best. So the first thing we started to attend to was the wiring, because it broke down more than it moved. And then when we sort of picked the stuff into the wiring, we took the seats and the carpets out, had a look at the floors, because she thought there'd be a couple of holes. It turned out to be a bit of a mess. So this little car has had, without touching the bodywork, that was one of the stipulations, that she didn't want to, or didn't have the money at the time to pay to paint and restore it. Very much like Doug, we did everything to it and tried not to ruin the original current paintwork. So the floor pans on this were awful. They'd been changed. They were I mean, these cars rotted out. This is a little Italian left hooker, I think, originally. And the floor pans had been changed 25 years ago. And basically what they did was cut around the outside of it, drop it on the floor, cut the sides off a new one, throw it in, about 15 spot welds, chuck seats back in, and off you went. Which is fine, because these cars then weren't worth a tenner and you were just keeping it going. Whereas now they have quite a good value, and it was better to sort it properly. Everything's available. I think the company's called Ricambo. I'll have to go and check a receipt. They've been spectacular with us. They sold us all the floor pans. We put a new gearbox centre tunnel in it. I'll lift it up on a ramp in a minute and show you. We looked at the wiring harness. The wiring harness was horrific. It had been cut into, chopped about. There were a lot of changes, obviously, because this would have been originally a dynamo car. The 126 engine has an alternator, and they changed indicators, lights. It was just awful. But the parts are sensible, so I'm pretty sure a brand new wiring harness for this came in at less than 200 quid. 2.5 hours of trying to fix the other one and your 200 quid's gone. So we threw every piece of wiring out and we rewired the whole car, me and Tom again, bless him, with a complete brand new harness. But before we did that, we took the seats out, the entire interior, and basically dealt with the floors. So I'm going to fire this up now, drive it out of here, quickly whip it on a ramp, and I'll show you what we did to the underside of this. Same again to make it safe, and then and we sorted everything else out whilst without. Also got rid of the annoying big bore loud noisy exhaust that used to deafen you whenever you went anywhere. And she uses this car daily. It's been in here store for a few months because they're off whizzing around Europe in their big camper van. But bless her, this, if you see this round Bournemouth, this is her daily transport, and I think that's ace. Right, you won't be able to see me, but Fiat 500s install some little pulley levers. So, pulley lever. I can hear the power. So, first gear, here we go. They are tiny little things. They almost go in a modern car parking space sideways. Don't scrape it on anything. Right, so we are stood underneath a Fiat 500. Simple little cars again, transverse leaf spring in the front. Made them really good for parking because the wheels, I mean literally the steering angles on the front are brilliant. You can almost turn them sideways. Let's put that back again. And then similar sort of idea to the Beetle. Transaxle, engine hanging off the back. So above my head here is a little, I think these are 650cc air-cooled 2-cylinder engine. Independent rear suspension on the back, 2 swinging arms and some little springs up in here. And then a Fiat 500 has a sort of similar body structure, I suppose, apart from unlike the Beetle, the top and the bottom are separated. The Fiat 500 is one complete unit. So basically what me and Dom did is all of this was a bit nasty. So you've got a complete floor pan through here. And then above this, inside the car, I'll show you that in a minute, it's like a structural tunnel that takes the gear rod coming into the car and everything is bolted off of. Comes into the front inner wings here. This is the front bulkhead where the front axle mounts. Now all of this was good. This front cross is lovely. There are some little bits of filler in these outer edges. She knew about that and we were sort of given the remit of the bodywork on a car is expensive, so could we do it without ruining all the paintwork, which we did, because the sills are joined on the edge here, so we managed not to burn all the sill paint off, and we replaced all of this. I'll bring you in here a bit closer, show you what we did underneath, and then I'll basically drop it back down, whiz it inside, and we'll have a look at the inside. There we go, stand underneath it. As you can see, you've got basically a complete set of floor pans. So, back structural member of the car, gearbox hanging off of it, suspension, then an outer sill. As you can see there, that's actually the bottom of the car, and you can see there's bits of, a little bit of filler in there, there's a bit of filler. All this is good. And we joined the vehicle here, so we did have to paint it black to there, because obviously we had to grind this off. But we put these floor pans in, back where they should have been from the bottom, all the way through. There's a big centre section through here underneath the centre tunnel inside, out to the outer sill there. So there, look, all through, rejoined all of this, which is the inner wing coming down. We had to repair this. It's joined there. We didn't go ridiculous to hide it. This obviously all had to be chiselled off across here. This is the original, and then up into here to rejoin the inner wheel arch. So this car is absolutely structurally solid as a rock. All of this is new. All the seat pickups are right. The seat belt mounts, which were hideous, they're all right. And then you've got obviously your rear. They never had rear seat belts, but they're mounted into here, and it's all joined and done nicely. I mean, it's got black rust cure all over it. It had black rust cure all over it beforehand. We liberated a lot of it, and then it's had a lano guarding to death. I mean, I love these things. We changed the exhaust out. So 1973, brand new exhaust silencer. This is the original spec one that quiets the car down quite nicely. Brand spanking new, delivered to your door, 69 quid. You couldn't knock that, could you? So what we'll do is we'll drop it back down to the floor, bless its little heart, and we'll have a quick look inside it. So basically, I mean, classic Fiat 500, they're great. We have replaced this, obviously, all of these floor pans. I'm not going to pull a carpet up because it's not worth it. This entire gear tunnel. Hang on, let me see if I can do that one-handed. I reckon I can do that one-handed and one-footed. So, all of that centre tunnel in there was new because he was pretty bad. So the floor pans join either side. We were considering putting a whole floor in it, but structurally it was going to go very, very floppy. It's joined all the way through, and it makes a very respectable little Fiat 500. There are some pickly bits of bodywork But as I said a minute ago, she drives it every day around Bournemouth. So if you see her, give her a toot and a wave. She's a lovely lady, and that's her pride and joy. Right, on to modern structural vehicle repair. Right, so now we're going for modern-ish vehicle repair. So 2006, 2007, 2.5 DCI 100, the slightly lesser horsepower one. Renault Master. Anyone would have noticed. Just French registered and left-hand drive. One of those box mover things. So it has some issues. Came traded into us. Before anyone lectures me, I know how the French registration system works. I have a car to grease or a certificate of immatriculation. I have contact with the original owner. It's not a problem. Failed a CT, repair it. It'll go back to France to be sold, but it's got to be CT'd so that it can be transferred and all that sort of stuff. So we're on that. Don't need a lecture on it. So basically it has a few issues. First main one being it now has second gear. It makes grindy noises, it won't go in. I'm not pissing about with the gearbox. I've got a 6-speed one out of a van we nicked the engine out of years ago. I know the gearbox is good and it hasn't done serious mileage, so I'm going to put that in here. Cost free, we had it anyway. I've got loads of other bits, trim, stuff to make it look smart, and a wing without a sodding great big dinger in it, in the right colour. Now, this thing has some what could be described as structural issues. Now these box movers, or low loaders we know them as here, are very, very lightly put together. I mean, they are made of fromage, basically. So this wasn't a chassis cab, and didn't use one of those. So what they are made out of is is basically a chopped off medium wheelbase or long wheelbase panel van. So I'm assuming that they get them from Renault when they build them, minus the sides, the back, but you've got the floor and the chassis of a panel van, basically, with this big box body drop where the rest of it would have been. And they build them very, very lightly. I mean, if this was a big 3.5 ton Luton chassised one, it'd probably be able to carry about 750 kilos. The idea of the low loaders where they were built very light and you could get around 1.5, 1.7 tons in them, nice and low to the floor, hence the fact they're built on a panel van. And they, well, if this was a British vehicle, he's done his time and he's not worth repairing. This van will be worth 2.5 grand in nice nick. Anyone who knows how the continent works or how the European market works, vehicles in France are much more expensive and they want a small fortune for them. So there is a value in this. And in that value is the ability for us to fix it. I didn't give a lot for it trade-in. It's done just shy of 400,000 kilometres, so 250,000 miles. DCIs are well easy worn that. My last recovery truck did 530,000 miles before it exploded. And it's still going because we threw another engine in it. So the problem comes not with really the vehicle, it's with the conversion in the back. So I'm going to show you that quickly because that's a current job I'm doing. It's mine. I'll fix it, tidy it, take it to France, sell it. So I'll move the camera about the back and you can have a look at what's left of the back of it. So one of the upsides of these obviously low loaders is given away by the fact that because it's not chassis and the body's sat apart, you don't need a tail lift. That saves you 500 kilos and you've got quite a low slung rear floor. You get big barn doors on the back like this. And as I open these big barn doors, you will see there's a problem that we are currently having. So, they are built spectacularly lightly. Now, you will see poking out here the floor of a panel van that never had the sides put on the roof put on it. The body's obviously longer. Some very cheapo benty bits of tin to hold the arse up. The arse is holding on here at the moment on the grace of God. So how they build these, they have big sheets of 1.2 mil tin folded in to go under the sides. They put this all in first. So there's an 8x4 sheet here with the edges folded over, bolts into this back cross member and bolts in down the sides. Then there's some short extensions bent and folded into the front, stuck on top of the floor, and you can see where we've had to cut the spot welds off because we've got a little bit of gout in the van but nothing serious. And then obviously the body being wider, they make Garuda board wooden wheel arches. Yeah, you heard it right. on the hoops. Really lightweight tin wheel arches. This one is the one that the shock absorber, you can see where the shock absorber broke. If I just go in here and poke it through the wheel arch, it's still just there, and obviously it didn't do the wheel arch any favours. So smash that off, rip the back out, beat this auto crap, and the whole body was starting to sink down on the truck. So there is a Garuda board floor in here. So what they do is they put the sheets in first, bolt this big stand-up bit in, then there's an aluminium channel down either side. That bolts or is screwed on top of a sheet of Garuda board sat onto tin, and then they basically fold the edge of the tin over, has got a 90-degree hook up on it, and they pot rivet that to the Garuda board and the thingy, screw it down, and then slot the sides in on top, which is marvellous. I mean, this thing is over 10 years old, and it worked very well until this back bit of tin rotted out along here, let the arse go. Then these not very well made pieces of tin that hold the back on are actually bolted originally together with 8mm bolts. So they broke, and then the whole sort of back started to go like this. The floor bowed up in the middle. Then that happened and the front was falling apart. So what we've done is I've cut the remnants of this, I'll go and find it in the scrap pile in a minute, out completely. So I've taken all the metalwork out. The fold over at the front didn't look bad from underneath, but where it's lapped over a floor, it's gone very rusty underneath all the wooden sheeting. And Garuda board is that sort of multi-fibred, like brown sheet you get in horse boxes and trailers. It's very good, but it's also very heavy. So a man's come up with a grand and cunning plan for saving it. So what I've done is bought some 40mm box. So I'm going to remake this back holder in 40mm box across the top of here, pick the back up, make it a bit stronger. Remake the sides in 40mm box because they had gone all wobbly. They've got like little triangular brackets that come down and the pot riveted on, they'd fell off. And basically rebuild the body so it's held off the van with some decent steel work. Now the trouble with the decent steel work thing is that obviously that's heavier than the rubbish tin that was put in here in the first place. But only if you put a Garuda board floor back on it, which is really, really heavy, it's going to mount up, weight up, and then you won't be able to put anything in it. So what I'm going to do is remake the sides, remake this. We've got some slightly lighter, so I'm going to go for 1mm sheet. So I'm going to put the sheet on top of back where it would have been originally to fill the holes in, but on top of a box frame on the outside. It's all going to be a bit exciting to get it all to fit in here. And then I've got 3 big sheets of aluminium checker plate, nice and light. So I'm going to replace the Garuda board floor over the top with an aluminium one, rebuild this wheel arch, and then in theory I won't be any heavier than we were before with all the rubbish stuff that I didn't like. But it obviously takes a bit more time, and the reason they didn't do it in the beginning, obviously, because that's a bit more spendy. So, but I'm not worried about the spendy because obviously we're doing it ourselves. And then that will give me, once, the only thing I'm going to struggle with is obviously I have to repair this, and the bracket on the inside doesn't look very pretty. Be fine. Sort the hole there, sort the hole there. There's one up there that's going to need a bit of love. Make sure this floor's painted right through so we don't get any more rusty problems, because the truck's really good apart from that bit, and there's a hole over there, and it's a bit crispy down there. And then forklift, lifty body, and obviously the main problem being is that you can't, these structural sections on the side were designed to be dropped on top of the aluminium sides when they put together because they built it from the floor up. But I can get around that. I'm going to lift it, drop it on top somehow, slide the sheet underneath it, and then I think by the time I've steel riveted the sides back onto my new box frame, it will come mustard. Put a gearbox in it, clean it to death, sort the lights. That door's a bit wonky, got all the bits to fix that, and I reckon I've probably got myself a 6,500 to 7,000 euro. Really nice, well up together. Bought cam belt for it too, just to be sure. Renault Master DCI. And we might just get the pimping machine out and turn it up from 100 to 130, 140 horsepower. Might as well. It'll wear that quite happily, and then it will make quite a nice thing. So that's one of the current projects. And now what we're going to do is we're going to give you a quick show of some Sprinter and a few tips on what to look for when buying a fucking vehicle, classic or not, as to what people do to hide things and the things that you see a mile off and go, oh my God, Don't buy that. As he clambers back out of there. Right, what we'll have a discussion about now. This is obviously a Sprinter van. This is actually my Sprinter van. I would like to point out I bought it in like this. None of this nastiness is anything to do with me. It's a little 210. Now you can see a mile off, if you went and looked at this, that something with it is off. We have steam heat at the side of it, but most of the time, if you go and look at a van or a car, and there's lots of black shots on it, I expect it to be hiding something. So this was black for the first, 6 inches at the bottom. So you can see the top quality rusty repair down there. That's fiberglass wedged in, that's coming out. And some champion has welded the sills up. He was obviously blind, in the dark, not that would have made any difference, and he couldn't use a welder. It is awful. I mean, this bit's not bad, that's fine, that's the original. And then we put a patch in from there to there. I mean, it's horrible. Didn't look too bad with the black cook all over it. But once you've got rid of the black cook, it doesn't fit, it's not attached properly, and it's crap. So, lots of black shots blown on the underside of vehicles is normally there to hide things. Same with, like this has a ½ inch of weld sealant scraped in it. There's nothing wrong with weld sealant or seam sealant if used properly, but that isn't it used properly. So, I'll take you around the other side and I'll show you the other top quality repairs that we're going to get rid of. And then we'll make this back into, I want this as my own personal transport. Quite a nice little van once I've got rid of all of this that affects me. So as you'll see, we sort of have the same top quality repairs going on this side. So there was a load of sort of scrotty body filler chucked in here. It was half painted green. I did sand at it a bit a while ago, but I don't view it because it's been bent there, and you can see someone's nicely pulled that out. So, and then we have the same sort of top quality welding repair going on here. So basically, we've got a very bent bit of inner sill in there where someone's jacked it up and squashed it. This panel has had its day. I'll show you what I do, but I'm going to get rid of all of this. This is going to go. That, I think I can fix. That's fine. That'll be all right. And then same here, that this is going to need to go. I've cut it off already, but you can see the quality of the joint. And if you see things like this, unless the vehicle's particularly cheap and you just want to run it for a year, no, just don't do it. You end up doing what I'm doing over the other side there, and I'll go and show you that now. So this is an ex-Rolls-Royce long wheelbase 313 52 plate Sprinter. Now you will think I'm probably crazy for doing this much work, but this van has done 109,000 miles with 2 owners. It's actually, apart from this was crash damage, which they bodged years ago, body shop style, it was pretty bad and filled full of filler because it didn't look too bad when you first got here. And you thought, oh, that was over. There was a big lump of pickle, like lifting filler here. So, like I do, I got hold of that, that fell out. Then this was sort of scooped in here. There's a structural member they joined to on the inner of the van to stop this panel flapping. They hadn't bothered rejoining it to that. They drilled the spot welds off from the inside so they could pull it back out again and then just left that. And by the time you battered at it, there wasn't very much left, including nothing left of the inner wheel arch. But by this point, one was quite committed. But these vans, in nice condition, with sensible miles, let me just pick my gun up here that I've left lying on the floor, are worth quite good money. So it didn't cost me an awful lot. These panels come through Easy Parts. I like Easy Parts, and to be honest, they come from Poland, but their panel quality is really quite good. Some of the ones are a bit wonky, like this one is one of them galvanised ones. Galvanised ones are a pain in the arse because they try and gas you every time you weld them, and you have to pick all the galvanised off, which just kills the thing. But the actual thickness is nice. So what I did, because I've done this a million times, is completely attack the side of this. So I cut it with a zip disc grinder, clean through above this joint, because I know where the panels come to, took this off, that off. Then I didn't like the outer wheel arch, well the inner wheel arch, which is technically like the outer section of the complete wheel arch, because the inner is good. Cut the outer off of it, cut the complete wheel arch out of it because I know which panels you can buy, and then obviously on a Sprinter the sills run underneath and then they join as a flat section comes down, picks up on all the inner structural mounts, and there's a little fold on the bottom that spot welds to the outer sill. That was all horrible too. So this van has currently had this piece here. I will just pull off because I haven't attached that yet. So I've repaired this inner sill. Now yes, I have used some black Tetraseal stuff that we had left over, not to hide stuff purely. It does underseal, that's why it's called underseal, but it is used in the right places. So all of this has been repaired. The bottom is good, the original panel is cut off. This bottom is bare metalled. I put Tetraseal in because we've got loads of tans of this stuff kicking around, purely to stop it rusting again, not to hide anything. It's on the in. So these panels, I have remade the bottom all the way along in a flitch, seam welded it, done. That's lovely. I've done the back too, and we are on the finals. This is just tacked here at the moment. As you'll see, it doesn't look the prettiest to get it in the right spot before we go for the finals. I was short of the wheel arch panel that links from here to here, so I'm just waiting for that to join up. I've put a new inner wheel arch in. He's all cut in and seam welded round there. All the joints are good, and everything was done as I go together. So once this is done, needs a painting from sort of here somewhere, because this will polish up, and I know what colour that is. So that takes all of the gout out of this side of the van all the way through. I've got to put the new sliding door sill in, and then I will make sure everything is seamed up, done lovely, undersealed, and this van will be good. I say it's only done 105,000 miles. If it had done 250, you would not bother. It's not worth it. But it'll make quite a nice thing. It's got the standard Sprinter peeling off bottom door bottoms at the bottom of the front, but I've got all that to sort that. And the rest of it is really good. The cab's as tidy as anything. But if you looked at this in the beginning, you would have thought it was quite reasonable, because it's just body filler, so you can pick body filler. If you're going to go and look at something, take a little magnet in your pocket, go, oh, and the magnet falls off, you know it's not metal. If it's got tons of black Schultz, as I said a minute ago, all over it, it's hiding something. I'd rather see bits of surface rust all under the bottom of something, and it sort of solid-ish, than it all covered over with a load of snot. And then dodgy welding repairs. Luckily enough, this vehicle has never been touched apart from that piece of crash damage there. It got caught here, it bent this wheel arch, and I reckon it was only a year old when it did it by the look of the numbers on the inside. But it was done really poorly. But it lasted another 10 years until the filler started to lift, because you don't quite know how well someone did it. I'll go and show you the other side quickly. This is the other side. We had a big piece of rust just here, caused by crappy Mercedes water-based paint that causes all the problems, that had sort of gone like this. So I do have a bit of a hole here, but that's fine because I've got a bit to put in there. This wheel arch, big lump of pickle, not from any accident damage or poor repairs, just from the the way the paint falls off of them. So basically, ground this off, ground that off. I'm going to replace this panel to the mat through here, because the sill under the bottom here has got a bit of a hole in it there. We've got this bit here, which is same again is the standard Sprinter rust, and there was a big line dent there. So to be honest, there's a hole in the sill at the front there. I'm just going to do the same this side. I will just trim it off, completely replace the inners and outers where needed. Got to sort that. Obviously that's not through, that's just surface, it's got rust killer on it. And once that's done, we'll fettle both sides of the van, paint it in, and it'll make someone either a really nice camper conversion or just a nice old, reliable, good 905 Sprinter. No wonder everyone thinks I'm crazy for doing this type of stuff, but I like doing this type of stuff, and also you guys probably get to watch it as well. So we're going to go and look at one more thing quickly, and then I think that'll be me signed off for the day, going and doing some editing. So the last thing to look at for the day is obviously we've started on my Peugeot. Now there is another video coming on this in a minute of all this being done, but as you can see, when we took the back axle out, it was getting quite severe. We took some awful welding out in the top corners up here. The actual car itself at the front isn't too bad. It just needed getting at. I mean, you can see the steel here where we cleaned it off. Now Fudgy's been doing this one because he's just remade, where is it? This is new. That's just gone in. And then if I, obviously because she sat up in a ramp, we've just remade all of that because that had fell out. So the next bit he's going to do is we've got all that. You can see him cutting his cardboard templates in because we've got to remake an inner wheel arch because it's gone. That's where the filler neck sits. And then make sure all the rust is stopped, sorted, and then this shouldn't be too much more. Well, obviously apart from that. And that bit there. Too much more to sort. Right, so I think we'll call it a day there, to be honest. So remember, when buying things, just make sure you look. Snot, weld sealer, body filler, it's all easy to pick. And you can pick it from 20 foot away half the time. If it looks pickily and it doesn't look straight, there's normally a reason for it. And all this stuff can be repaired. I mean, I think we're working like vehicle recyclers, but let's be honest, this vehicle isn't worn out yet. So why throw it away and make a new one to replace it when, to be honest, someone like me, Fudgy, and there's lots of us, can fix these things and keep it together. It's got to be greener in the long run, but we're not having that argument today. If anyone wants a Morris Minor, hit me up. Have a look on Car and Classic. I will get it on there this week, and I might even venture putting it on eBay. I'm just not sure I can be dealing with the drama. And thank you very much, Al, 6D Diesel.